In her book, she says the White House was broken. This after 2 years along a president who wasn't housebroken. But she only realized this after she stopped getting paid to defend it. But like Jake Tapper's book, it's a new genre of Biden tell-alls that should be subtitled, "I had no idea because I'm severely retarded."
If you thought Karine Jean-Pierre was really good at avoiding questions with a smile and a folder full of notes, well, think again. Because Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly just made that press room stage look like a comedy show where everyone laughs at the person talking. Gutfeld was making jokes faster than she could turn her pages. Megyn was cutting through all the confusing talk like a super sharp saw that had too much coffee. And Karine, she was blinking her eyes like someone who got asked a really hard follow-up question. What did they say that made all her prepared answers fall apart? Oh. It's really funny, but also kind of mean.
Why don't you talk to the Megyn Kellys of the world, who have literally voted until this last election, which put me over the edge on voting more for Republicans. But literally now I voted in 9 presidential elections. God, I'm getting old. And I voted, it was 4 and 4. 4 Dems, 4 Republican votes up until I voted for Trump again this last time. So it was 5 Republicans, 4 Dems. I've been a registered Democrat, I've been a registered Republican, and now I've been a registered independent for 17 years. That's what an actual political independent looks like. Not like somebody who worked for 2 Democrat administrations until they got the stank of desperation all over them, and she ran for the hills trying to pretend she knows what independence is.
One, if being sarcastic were like playing in the Olympics. Greg Gutfeld and Megyn Kelly would both win gold medals, and this week, the person they were picking on was Karine Jean-Pierre. She's the press secretary who seems to treat questions like dangerous bombs. She pulls the pin and then throws them back at the reporters, hoping someone else will jump on them.
All those applications you gotta fill in.
That's the thing.
What'd you think I meant, vaginas?
Ew.
Disgusting people. But now everyone says she's incompetent and lazy. You know, after they called me racist for saying that. That's not why I'm racist.
Nope.
Let's be honest here, Karine's press meetings have turned into some weird kind of art show where giving a straight answer to a question is apparently not allowed. Greg Gutfeld, who is the best at making cable TV comedy that pretends to be news, had the best time ever. He basically treated Karine's latest press meeting like it was amateur comedy night at a comedy club that was failing, except nobody was laughing with her, only at her. And they were laughing harder and harder each time.
But really, they're just jealous. These colleagues also played along with a hoax, saying that Joe was doing 75 one-arm push-ups while finishing the New York Times crossword puzzle all before breakfast. She beat them to the publisher's office and to the bank. I expect to see more of these books because of the lifeboats these rats will use to try and escape the shipwreck of the past 4 years. So KJP is now an independent because apparently pretending to be apolitical sells better than admitting your last job was gaslighting America.
His long speech making fun of her turned Karine into a sad comedy character, walking around in the broken pieces of logic and making sense. Imagine someone trying to explain really hard math while being chased by angry bees. That's the kind of energy Karine brings when she stands at that podium, and Greg, he just made it even louder. He put on a hat that said sarcasm boss and poured gasoline on the already burning trash.
That's how bad the stink is when one of its worst offenders is fleeing this rancid armpit called the Democrat Party. So should we buy her book? Well, only if your family and friends have a sense of humor. It'll make a great gag gift. You know, like fake dog or rubber vomit. Only the stench here, it's real.
Meanwhile, Megyn Kelly, who has become really good at smiling while destroying someone with 1,000 tiny word cuts, took a more careful approach. If Greg came in with a big hammer, Megyn brought a tiny surgical knife and a super powerful magnifying glass, just to zoom in on the most ridiculous silly things that Karine tried to pass off as serious
The book, and her fans are already sharpening their crayons. And it's just what we need to tell all from the woman who spent 2 years telling everyone that Joe just had a cold and not rigor mortis. The title hadn't already been taken, it should be called Art of the Steal. KJP also says she's leaving the Democratic Party. I say God bless her. Not many people have the patience to wait in a line that long.
Megyn took apart Karine's press meeting performance like a scientist looking at a frog with 3 livers. She didn't just point out that Karine was bad at her job, she showed how theatrically ridiculous the whole thing was. If Jean-Pierre was trying out for a part in a political version of the movie Clueless, she totally nailed it. She absolutely crushed that audition. One of the moments that set Gutfeld off like a little kid who drank too much coffee was when Karine tried to explain inflation like it was a new TikTok dance challenge. Greg, who was clearly struggling not to laugh out loud, went through what he called the press secretary's guide to money fiction. It was like a fantasy story where high prices actually mean the economy is strong, and the dollar getting smaller is just going on a diet for summer. And that's when the gloves came off. Gutfeld made an entire TV segment making fun of Karine's style of giving non-answers. It had dramatic pauses, circular thinking, and the weird ability to mention something completely unrelated like it was the perfect ending. He finished by clapping for her, because she was the only person who could answer a yes or no question with a 15-minute speech that ends in confusion and feeling sorry.
Karine Jean-Pierre reinventing herself as an independent. This from, it's everywhere, but this is just from the New York Post right up. That she claims she's no longer a Democrat. She's coming out with a book, a memoir, hyping, says the New York Post, a quote, broken Biden administration. They go on to say that it's a tell-all she's working on now, and it's going to be a look inside. Independent is the name of it. A look inside a broken White House, outside party lines, due in October. Hachette, which is publishing it, says Jean-Pierre did not come to her decision to be an independent lightly.
Megyn, of course, took the smart person's path. Her takedown was like watching a manners teacher explain why someone eating soup with a fork should be banned from dinner parties forever. She made a list, and if lists could roll their eyes, this one would have, of Karine's greatest hits. These included classics like Let Me Come Back to That, We're Working on That, and the all-time favorite The President Has Been Clear, which has become less of a real statement and more like a joke from outer space by the time Megyn was done. Karine Jean-Pierre had basically tripped over her own folder of prepared answers and fallen into the arms of pure making fun of. There's no need to repeat what Megyn said word for word because her tone said it all. She was part disappointed teacher, part stand-up comedian, and all business. If being good at your job were like money, Karine had spent way more than she had, and Megyn was the bank asking for it back. But Greg wasn't finished, no way. He then showed what can only be called a dramatic acting out of a Karine Jean-Pierre briefing, starring a goldfish wearing a tiny business jacket. The goldfish was more to the point, made more sense, and was somehow even better at avoiding questions. It even got people clapping.
In this book, she may focus her ire on figures aside from Biden. Quote, she has served two American presidents, Obama and Biden. She takes us through the 3 weeks that led to Biden abandoning his bid for a second term and the betrayal by the Democrat Party that led to his decision. Tease goes, and she's going to regale us with a hard-hitting yet hopeful critique defining what it means to be part of the growing percentage of our fractured electorate that is independent, why it can be worthwhile to carve a political space more loyal to personal beliefs than a party affiliation, and what questions you need to ask yourself to determine where you fit politically. You've got to be kidding me.